This week's episode of Chat Chow is brought to you by Action Against Hunger, an international humanitarian organization committed to ending world hunger. For more information, visit actionagainsthunger.org. On this week's episode of Chat Chow, we'll be speaking with Angela Garcia, owner and pastry chef of Lovely Daze Macarons here in South Florida.
We're drinking coffee.
Coffee?
Because it goes really well with macaroons.
Awesome. So let's cheers to that, and then do we get to have a taste of these delicious treats in front of us?
Yeah. Well, the first one, it's like an ice cream sandwich. So I have chocolate and cappuccino, whatever you want to try. This
I'll
is
try
dark
the
chocolate.
Take a bite of this. So it's like a macaroon ice cream sandwich.
That's my favorite dessert.
I can see why. So tell us, why macaroons?
Well, my love for macarons started when I was living in France. I was working at a restaurant in Saint-Emilion, which is a medieval town close to Bordeaux in the west of France. And then I was working on a restaurant that was on the top of the hill. And every time I was walking up, there was all over the town a smell of almonds, and of course it was the macaroons. So that's where I discovered the macaroon, and every morning I would stop and eat some. The oven was also carved in the rock. And then I moved to Paris, and that's where I discovered the fancy macaroons with all the colors and decorations and flavors. And when I was working with the chef Alain Ducasse, I was in pastry. I was in charge of making macaroons every day. Okay. I worked there for 2 years, but I was in charge of making them for 6 months. So it was very stressful. But then at the end I said, okay, this dessert, I have to do something in the future with it.
How long does it take to make macaroons?
It takes like 2 days to make them, because first you have to make the cookie, which is a long process. You have to dry it, then bake it in the oven, and then you fill them, and they have to be in the fridge for 24 hours. Every week I have to make around 3,000 macaroons.
Wow.
So that I sell to hotels, restaurants, little markets, catering companies, and they can buy online on my website.
Would you say there are any current trends in pastry making that are happening now?
Yes, I think the trend now is back to basics. Pastry chefs are going back to classic desserts and basic desserts, simple.
Are there any seasonal ingredients that you like to incorporate into your macaroons?
Fruits.
Fruit?
Yeah. So when the fruits are in the peak season, that I make a jam or a ganache, and that's where the flavor is most delicious.
Is that easy to do? It doesn't matter the fruit, you can somehow make it work?
That's what is amazing about the macaroon, that you can do any flavor. Any flavor you can combine. For example, you can do a ganache of peach, and then inside a verbena pastry cream. Like you can mix you can do everything.
Unlimited possibilities.
Unlimited possibilities.
That's great. Speaking of flavors, why don't you walk us through these beautiful delicacies behind us?
This one is vanilla. I do it with a vanilla bean from Thai tea. This is hazelnut praline, cappuccino, passion fruit, pistachio, rose petal, grapefruit, blackcurrant, and dark chocolate.
They all look so good. What is your favorite?
My favorite is rose petal. That's the first macaron that I did when I started my company.
And what do you think is the most popular flavor?
Most popular is chocolate, always chocolate. But now it's rose petal, because I make everyone has to try the rose petal. I always give samples of rose petal, so now they love it, everyone.
I'm gonna try the rose petal then.
Okay. Yes.
What inspires you as a chef, or who in this industry might inspire you?
All the great chefs that I've met through my career inspire me. And right now there's a girl that is inspiring me. It's a friend of mine. I work with her at Nobu 3 days a week. And we are baking very simple desserts, classic American, like pies and tarts, cookies, ice creams, so very simple desserts.
Speaking of chefs, we actually interviewed Douglas Rodriguez, and we told him that we were coming to interview you, and we asked him if he had any questions for you, and he said, you know, I know the humidity in South Florida, humidity in general, I guess, is a macaroon's worst nightmare, so how do you combat that living in South Florida?
Wow, yeah, that's my biggest problem. It's been always my biggest problem since I started my company, and that's why at the beginning, every time I was baking, I was crying almost every day because macarons don't like humidity. So you just have to control the temperature of the fridge, of the freezer, of the ambience where you cook the macarons. You just have to be everything has to be very quickly. You cannot sit the macarons for a long time outside.
If you had one food that you had to choose from to eat, just one, what would it be?
It would be rice and beans.
Rice and beans.
From my grandmother.
Your grandmother used to make it a lot?
Yeah. I can eat rice and beans, breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Really?
Yeah.
We want to thank you so much for being on the show. Let's do
Thank
a final
you for inviting
cheers.
me.
Oh, definitely. This was fun and beautiful.
Okay.
Really, probably the most beautiful presentation we've had.
Thank you. I'm going to try this one.
Yeah. Yummy.